Mirror, mirror.
I got a shooter next to you. Will Caesar, I got a don't fuck around, they got comfortable. I got a shooter next to you, I ain't sending in the clip. I got a shooter next to you.
I got a shooter next to you, I ain't sending in the clip. Why you gossiping and gawking, acting feminine and shit? I see you running through your house, it's got me slipping, this is it. And got your head blown off by the women in it. May catch her breaking down a pistol as she riding on the dick. May catch her riding through the city on the money making lit. May catch her out there with the squad, all her babies with the shit. Don't get your head blown off by the women in it. What's happening? Welcome to another episode of So I Was Just Minding My Business Right podcast.
So I was just minding my
I am
business
your
right.
host, Romero Goodwin.
Mirror.
And black men don't cheat. At the beginning of this podcast, I gave very few details about myself, and so only those that know me know me. So I'm gonna expand on that. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm very distrustful. You can't just tell me something and that just be the end of that. It has to make sense. Not only does it have to make sense, it has to be accurate. All right? And so I take my time before I speak. I research things because also people that know me know it's really, really important for me to be right. That could be ego, that could be anything, but it's really, really important for me to be right. And when something comes up or new information is presented, I want to learn that information because that means currently I'm wrong and I really want to be right. That's really important to me. So I had a conversation with a homegirl recently. It was really, really brief. We were discussing it's not necessarily what you do but how you do it, right? And as that relates to me, when I speak very directly. I speak very emphatically and purposefully. Like, so I'm not soft-spoken. I don't believe we have time. But because I'm so direct and because I'm so aggressive in the way that I speak and matter of fact in the way that I speak, it oftentimes works against me because people are not hearing me. They're just focusing on the way that I'm delivering the message. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the end result of that oftentimes is that I waste time. Even though the reason why I'm speaking with urgency is because I feel like we don't have time. But in the end, I'm wasting time if the people that I'm speaking to urgently don't receive it. And then I go back and re-explain or say it in a different manner. All right? With that being said, I wanna slow walk some things as to how I got to where I am and the reason why I speak with such urgency. The flaw in the way that I speak and the flaw in my delivery is that I readily assume because I spent as much time studying, learning, and caring that the people that I am speaking to also do that. They are also on the same wavelength that I'm on. So when they don't get it, it's frustrating when it really shouldn't be frustrating. It really should be instructional, right? Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. So when we see black people, side note, remind me to discuss the term black and what that means legally. Because we really gotta stop calling ourselves that as far as, fuck it, I get into it now. All right, so the word black, the term black, means something completely different legally, right? So I don't know if everybody understands this, but the way that we speak to one another, the way we speak as a common practice as a society to one another, the same words that we use that means one thing to normal society means something completely different in law, right? So literally when you speaking to a law enforcement officer or you walking into a court or sometimes even when you're signing documents that are legally binding, the words that we are using that mean one thing to us mean something completely different, and we are contractually binding ourselves to something that we don't know. That's why it's always recommended when you go to court that you have an attorney with you, because the attorney speaks the language. Because unless you're going to take the time to sit down, study, and learn, and transfer your legalese, transfer your ability to speak multiple languages, become bilingual, because you have to be bilingual. You have to be able to speak English and legalese, right? Cool. That was a really, really, really long-winded answer for something that wasn't even a question. But all that was a setup for this. The term black And colored, as far as the law goes, means dead. Okay? Black's Law Dictionary is the standard dictionary for legal terms that is accepted and used by lawyers, judges, law students. It's not Black People's Law Dictionary. That's the title of it, Black's Law Dictionary. So according to Black Law Dictionary, the term black, the word black means civilitor mortis. Civilitor mortis. It means dead in the eyes of the law. Okay? Color. The word color, according to Black's Law Dictionary, color is an appearance, semblance distinguished from that which is real. Color, an appearance, semblance distinguished from that which is real. This is important. Why? Earlier I was discussing with you guys and my friends and my people. I was like, this seems to be spiritual because there's only one group of people that are being murdered. Black people in general, Black men specifically. And I couldn't understand why I didn't see any Asians. I didn't see any whites. I didn't see anything like that. And so this sheds a whole lot of light on that. Because in the eyes of the law, when we identify ourselves as Black, according to the law, we've identified ourselves as dead. So legally, you can't kill something that's already dead, right? This is why certain groups of people, even if they do get murdered by the police, there's justice for them. The police officers get arrested. But when we're specifically talking about Black people and or colored people, all we're saying is that we are not real. So when we have self-identifying forms, particularly when you're trying to fill out a job application, right? It asks you for classification. Are you African American? Are you Spanish or Hispanic? Specifically, it says Hispanic, not Black, right? That's an option if you pay attention to when you fill out a job application. This is because legally, all Black means is dead. Now, you and I can have a conversation and we can say we're Black people. That means what it means to us, right? And then if you get on the news, right? And the news says Black people are African American. That's cool. That's accepted culturally, no problem. The problem is law enforcement. We're talking about by law. Police officers, slave catchers are also law enforcers, right? So according to the law, Black is dead. So law enforcement has no legal standing or cannot be held responsible for killing something that is already dead, just legally. This is just how the game goes. If we recall, I think the brother name was Bacham Jean. The white woman Amber Geiger, she was a cop. She said she went into the wrong. She said she went into the wrong apartment and thought Bacham Jean was an intruder sitting on her couch. She was a police officer, off-duty police officer. She shot him while she was on the couch, right? She went to prison for that. Well, the reason why she went to prison for that is because Bacham Jean was Haitian, and he identified as Haitian. See, the way the country is set up is that if you have a nationality, if you have a nation, if you're from a nation, right, then you're a specific thing. What we have to understand is that race, Black, white, red, yellow, race being identified as a color didn't exist before slavery occurred, right? Before then, people were recognized by their national origin. You weren't white, it was where you're from. So you weren't white, you were a Spaniard. You were from Spain, right? You weren't Black, you were Nigerian. It's where you were from, right? So you were always been identified by your country of origin, your nationality. And due to you having a nationality, then you are a real person coming from a real place. Well, the term Black and white is a North American invention, and it came because slaves and poor white people started working together to have a revolt, right? We were revolting because everybody knew that this shit was wrong, and everybody knew who the enemy was, right? So what the powers that be did was they classified blacks and whites, right? And then they put whites right above blacks. So in legal terms, a white person has more standing than a black person. This was so that the white people didn't feel a kinship with the slaves or the black people because they felt like they were beneath them. So now we're not equals working together against the joint enemy. Now I'm a little bit better than you, so fuck you. As long as I have status above something, I feel better about myself. But mind you, you don't identify by where you're from anymore. You identify by the color of your skin. And legally, the color has no standing. So white people are white when we're talking, but when we get into court, they're Caucasians. We don't know where we're from. So we don't have a national origin. So this is how black people, quote unquote, right, are the people that get murdered by the police. Because we're already dead, they know legally nothing can happen to them. This is the law. This is the law. So be very weary about filling out documentation. Like on my license right now, it says race, it says BLK, it says black, right? So that means if something happens to me right now, because as we know, our licenses are legally binding documents. So as of right now, if something happens to me, I've already identified myself as black because I put that in. When you go file for your license, they don't put that in for you. They say race, you put it in. They say eye color, you put that in, right? So now that I've self-identified myself as dead, if something happens to me, it doesn't matter because I've already been dead. So these are the games that are being played, and we don't know this. We are unaware, right? So when we're talking to police and we're saying Black Lives Matter, what we're really saying to police are dead lives matter from a legal standpoint, right? And so because we don't play these types of games, we're not conscious of them. And that puts us at a disadvantage. Oftentimes because we are not evil, because we are not evil, we don't think evilly. Evilly, I think that's not a real word, but don't worry about that. We're gonna go with that. Because we're not evil, we don't conceptualize that evil exists in the way that we don't understand. Simply because we don't understand. This is a real thing. This happens all the time. I was gonna go somewhere else. I'm not going anywhere else today with this. I'm gonna stay right here because it's really, really important that we get this right. So I've been on this is very recent, I'm not gonna lie. I've been on a recent paradigm shift. I'm into calling things what they are. All right? Because if we call things what they are, it makes it a tad bit more difficult to be fooled. Right? We know exactly what it is that we're engaging in because we're calling it what it is. We're not giving it flowery language in order to make ourselves feel good or to deceive ourselves about what's actually going on. Right? Police officers are not police officers to black people. They're slave catchers. Right? And it's important that I address them as such because if you use the proper term, right? If you call things what they are, you wouldn't call it as a person of color, as a black person, a descendant of slaves. You wouldn't call a slave catcher to your house to break up a disagreement you and somebody in your house is having. That makes no sense, right? But if you call them police officers, it sounds like a friendly term. That's not calling them what they are. You don't see police as your enemies, but black people would clearly see slave catchers as their enemies, right? But if you have to address things, call them what they are, so we're in the proper perspective of how to move with them, right? We are marching in the streets right now. Again, another black male was killed by the police, right? There will be no justice for that. I just told you why. Unless he has a national origin other than black, because again, black is not a national origin. But the reason why they're marching in the streets, and this is a quote that I hear so often, it's stated that we are being murdered by those who are supposed to protect and serve us. Well, that's because we believe, that's partially because we call them police, right? But no person of color, no black person would rationally make the statement, I'm upset because slave catchers were supposed to protect and serve us. It wouldn't happen because it wouldn't be the case. Right? We know just by the calling them slave catchers, they are not for us. They are not our friends. Right? And we wouldn't call them. We wouldn't be upset marching. We wouldn't be crying looking for justice from slave catchers. But it's because we don't call them what they are that we have this misconception that we're easily upset because we think they're one thing and supposed to be doing one thing and they're not.
So I was just minding my business, right? Mirror.